Alright, a wonderful good morning everybody and welcome back to my channel, God's Shadow here. I haven't been uploading too much lately, mainly because I do have a problem with my spine and need to see some doctors about it, which doesn't allow me to concentrate for too long a period. But, of course, I wouldn't be not uploading anything for more than a week. So here we are. And to introduce what you see on your screen right now, I want to talk about the current state of the format just a tiny bit. And sometimes it's worth it to just take a step back while evaluating what you're doing. And currently, of course, next week, as everybody expects, Hogak's probably gonna leave the format, or something really crazy happens, like Stoneforge Mythic gets unbanned to somehow balance it out. But for the most part, it's Hogak still for the next week, and then on its heels, sorry, is Mono-Red Prowess or Mono-Red Phoenix, which almost has as high a win percentage at GPs as Hogak itself. And Lava Dart, probably as bad an addition to Modern as Hogak itself. So, yeah. And then after that, we do have, percentage-wise, we do have Urza Sword. Sometimes they even are better positioned, but for the most part, that's due to a smaller sample size. And yeah, then there's still, Jund and all kinds of stuff. So many loot index, of course. So for the most part, I don't think that black is where you want to be right now. And despite us, of course, continuing to develop our Grixis shell, we will go and punish people a little bit. As we always do, the Age of Reckoning. So right now here you see an Jeskai list because I think that Jeskai is actually pretty well positioned right now in order to beat both the Fatal Suiting decks with Phoenix, etc. Oh my goodness. Siri, shut up. And on the other hand, you still have lifelink and stuff for decks that are actually preying on these very aggressive decks, like Burn or whatever, which of course itself is also very aggressive, but mostly tries to punish very greedy mana bases. And then there's also a lot of Blood Moon stuff going on, like with Mono-Red Phoenix, so it's always good to have access to like Celestial Purge or whatever, and be a little bit red heavy. So talking about the deck itself, we're playing 3 colonnades. Mana base wise, we do have 2-2-1 splits between the shock lands here. Very seldomly you want to have a Sacred Foundry. For the most part, that's like in the late game when you need to, I don't know, chain Lightning Bolts, Lightning Helixes, and Path of Exiles together and stuff like that. But for the most part, you don't really want to have that, and you also don't want to have a second Plains, which I actually played with the last league, because I mean, the mana base itself can take it, but you're so intense with all the things you're doing, and I frequently found myself not being able to cast 2 or 3 colorful blue spells on turn 3 and 4. So I put a Sulfur Falls in instead of a Plains, which fits me pretty well. And then let's talk about the deck list here a little bit. Path, just probably a must-have right now for most control decks. Our Grixis Shell can, for the most part, deal without it, but that's why we have so many problems with Phoenix. Lightning Bolt against most of the Planeswalkers and smaller creatures. Lightning Helix, I opted to play 4 just because it's so great and actually provides virtual card advantage against many decks. Prohibit. Many of you think that Prohibit actually isn't a good card, but let me dive into that a little bit. The more I play it, the more I like it. I just played against Burn, Infect, Moonred Phoenix, and the last one I believe was Ortsov, Death in Texas, or Eldrazi in Texas. And against all these matchups, Prohibit was just amazing. Against the 1 and 2 mana decks, of course, it's just always a hard counter. It's just better than Counterspell itself, which already is great. But then you also, first of all, your opponents most of the time don't expect you to be able to counter their creatures on turn 2 if you don't have like a Flooded Strand or something. That gives you a little bit of a graveyard. And then Prohibit also scales really well. Whereas, and here's the big difference and why you don't play it in Grixis, but you would want to play it in any white deck, is that the longer the game goes and the more efficient your other spells become, the less efficient, of course, is Prohibit, but you're providing your opponent with additional lands most of the time, and therefore, like, the real pain in the ass in the late game for these blue-white decks is that, for the most part, you cannot counter an important 2 or 3 mana spell, or even a 1 mana spell, because then you have to pay like 6 or 8 for your Delve on Logic Knot, or you have to waste a Cryptic Command or whatever. And Prohibit just really plays around that really well. So while the rest of our deck becomes better, Prohibit of course becomes worse, but it's a great balance in the deck, and I hope to showcase that a couple of times. Force of Negation, just, you know, for the very early game, and for the most part it's just a hard counter in mid game. For the card advantage, I wanted to have Swings Revelation. I were not playing most of the common planeswalkers. I'll get into that in just a second. Swings Revelation, on the one hand, again, for the life link, because that's just like getting 2 or 3 life for the most part. Like, we want to cast it for 5. For 6 is great, and everything beyond 6 is probably game winning. So that's just really good. Fact or Fiction, our main card advantage engine, a little more reliable than Swings Revelation and digs us to more of what we need, whereas Swings Revelation is just raw card advantage, and probably for our extreme late game, Fact or Fiction always a good turn 4 play, and therefore I like them together here. Also because we only have action otherwise, except for maybe an opt, but yeah, everything else is just either disruption counterspells or just removal. So then here, the big one, the elephant or the Chandra in the room, is Chandra Awakened Inferno for 6 mana, which of course is a pretty high amount for a main board, but you know, people play 2 Teferis, etc. Hero Dominaria, of course, 5 mana. So 1 Chandra should be alright, and Chandra itself is just game winning against any control deck all of the time. They just can't remove it unless they triple bolt it or whatever. And yeah, it's a slow clock, but it also does a whole lot. Just plussing to 8, you never get rid of it, and you have a clock, and it also fits really well with the rest of our deck. Then the -3, just having a sweeper main board is also great, and then -X, exiling cards that are nasty in between is also just a good payoff. So I think Chandra is a good fix to our main board, because I don't like the printing, by the way. I don't like that they just put can't be countered on everything now, because by now, you, like in Modern, you basically can't counter anything anymore. Veil of Summer is also just not a cool card. But other than that, Chandra goes really well with our burn, of course, and then she provides us with inevitability and against control, where we sometimes are the dog because we're playing so many removal spells. It's just great to get her through if we want to. So, so except for one spell here, we're playing exclusively on our opponent's end step, which makes the deck quite flexible. So to the sideboard, I know also a controversial card here in the sideboard. On the one hand, there's Twill Storm, which we can't interact with other than Flusterstorm, so I definitely want to have it in here. But there's another reason. So I just played it against Burn, as I said, and many a time also against other decks, you can bait them into playing more or having more than one spell on the stack. And the more spells are on the stack, the better Flusterstorm becomes. And for the most part, I got to counter 2 or 3 spells for 1 mana with just 1 Flusterstorm, and that was just amazing. I can also go into the game if it doesn't happen during our walkthrough here. Abrade against Vile decks, it's pretty good. Also just having out to whatever, a Thopter Foundry or whatever. Sometimes just important. Dovin's Veto, Celestial Purge, these are all one-offs just because we couldn't fit anything else in anymore. I wanted to have 2 Flusterstorms. Maybe that makes Dovin's Veto obsolete, but on the other hand, we need to counter those Planeswalkers. Oh yeah, I didn't get into why we're not playing Planeswalkers yet, but I'll do that in just a second. And Celestial Purge against Blood Moon and all the red decks, just really good. Timely Reinforcements to really fuck with Burn and those kinds of decks. Settle the Wreckage for our most beloved Hogak, etc. And then just some utility. Anger, also pretty good position right now. So we're not playing any Planeswalkers because I just don't like. My working hypothesis right now is that Planeswalkers just aren't good because your opponents are mostly playing red, and thus you have to really be careful with your Planeswalkers. But on the other hand, they're also playing Force of Negation, which just puts you at a great disadvantage most of the time because you're always playing around Force. Either they have it or they don't. But if they have it, you're on the back foot for the rest of the game. And if they don't have it, then you're just being lucky. And yeah, therefore, and you also just, most of the time, you can't get any value out of your Planeswalkers, or not the value that you would like to. So yeah, that's the thing here, and that's the sideboard. Alright, we're gonna get rid of a Dovin's Veto here for another Braid or another Purge. Alright. Maybe a Blood Moon is more likely. So yeah, just finished Form 1 to try it out once. We're gonna join here again. Hopefully with the correct deck. Good. Oops. Alright, this of course isn't the best spot for our Chandra, and I'm inclined to mulligan here because we just don't have anything good. Keeping this and getting rid of Scolding Tarn because we have everything else. Oh yes, Tron. That is the only matchup probably that we're really weak against right now. Okay, our opponent's a little slower here with 2 power plants. Probably also means that he doesn't have another land in hand. But probably a second Sylvan Shrine. No, that comes naturally. Just one turn. Alright. The second cryptic means that we can actually bounce something. In this case, the Karn, and then counter it the next turn. But overall, like, are you fucking with me, man? Sanctum is also a big problem. So the reason I didn't Lightning Helix him end step here is because as long as we don't have Snapcaster or second Bolt in hand, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And since we wanted to bounce it anyway, just went that way. Alright. It's very possible that our opponent indeed does have a second Karn in hand. But we might be lucky here. There's Chandra, actually a decent win condition if we had one more land. Alright, yeah, that was the second Karn, and that is probably it. Alright, so we're gonna go with a Braid Stony. Lightning Helix just Not very good here. Keeping one in. And then we need to find a situation where we can slow our opponent down to a degree where our Snapcaster and Dylan Click beats are enough. If we find an opt or another very aggressive spell, then I'm definitely going to go with turn 3 Snapcaster. The Stony Silence should slow him down significantly anyway. Vanilla Click is a very good pickup. Doesn't even have another land. Well, then I think we're not gonna go after his hand. Instead, we are. Oh, he does have Nature's Claim. Let's have a look at his hand now. Things would have been differently if Stony Silence was still on the battlefield, of course. So I think we're gonna go after Sylvan Scrying here. The expedition map is one turn slower. Engine's Airing is also pretty good. Alright, so we're gonna go Bolt, Snap, Bolt, Bolt, Face. Hope for cryptic commands. And then next turn he's gonna have Ugin, of course. Which makes things somewhat awkward. Yeah, so I think we're gonna go Bolt him. Ugin probably ticks up to kill a Vendilion Click. Then we provide 8 damage. We can kill our Vendilion Click with a path in response. And then go Snap Bolt. Which might provide us with Celestial Colonnade next turn. Worldbreaker. Well, that's actually not too bad for us, since we do have pass. Now we get another turn with Vendilion Click plus 5 damage here, and we got lethal. I mean, I do understand we did that, but if your opponent's playing so aggressively, you might not want to do that. Alright, we wouldn't have had... Well, we of course would have shuffled our deck anyway, but... Alright. So we erased Tron there, which is pretty decent. And if we can get Chandra to tick up like twice, that's probably already enough to be game deciding. Pooh. Our opponent mulligans to 6. I think we have enough lands here. We're on the draw. Don't have many ways to find something amazing anyway. Just need to hope that he doesn't have a second. Well, never mind. Lucky bitch. So he's definitely gonna take down again next turn to prevent us from having Cryptic up. And we probably can't even get in between that. Turn 3 card on the draw. Though I don't think that. No, I still think it's a fine keep. I think we need to protect our lands. Don't care about the Oblivion Stone. So if we expose our island, he's gonna go after it. But there is no way for us to actually protect it here. Yeah, we can't really do anything about it. He probably also does have another card in hand already again. So if he takes down here, we could pretend having a Lightning Bolt or a Lightning Helix. He might not want to take that risk unless he does have another card in hand. All right. Well, sometimes you get guts. That's a matchup that we just exclude in our considerations because it's for Jeskai it's just not a good matchup. Here with Grixis, of course, we would have been better. Mulligan, horrible. Keep. So I guess we're gonna get rid of our Lightning Helixes just because we can't play them as of right now. Ah, you got to be kidding me. Oh my goodness. Now we're meeting all the Tron decks. Snapcaster could provide us with the third land source if we want to path it. Privet, again, very good spot here, where we could only have countered that with a negate otherwise, or Dovin's Veto. So I assume that our opponent does indeed have like an Ugin in hand or something like that. I'm not gonna go click draw step here, because with all the cards in hand, and there's an Ulamog, then we done. Great. Alright. Yeah, that's literally, I believe, the only matchup that we do not want to see. We can deal with Eldrazi Tron. We can deal with a lot of stuff. That's better. Keep pitch. Also, Sphinx Revelation here with the London Mulligan. Pretty decent. You can just put it to the bottom. Yeah, probably counter-worthy here. If he's not going with a Sylvan Scrying, then he probably also doesn't have one. And might have... Or he has it naturally, which of course could also be a case. So this, okay. So no Sylvan Scrying just yet. Kind of need the land, but tap land. It's going to be bad for us. This time we're going to draw step him, because we do not have a better play. Problem then is, if indeed he doesn't have the other Tron land or a way to find it, we might be drawing him into it. Walking Ballista. Well, Walking Ballista is also pretty bad. I'm gonna go against that here. Hope that he didn't draw a relevant card, like an expedition map, for instance. Insane. Insane. Now, of course, we're also running into... oh well. Not the best start into a league. But I think Tron is, like, mono green Tron is currently between 3 and 6% of the meta. We should not encounter it all too often, and I also haven't in the last leagues that I played. So, Misty Rainforest could be anything from Bunt Soulherder to some sort of brew. Alright, it looks like Bunt Soulherder, I guess. Against this deck, Anger of the Gods should be pretty good. Could also be thinking about Rest in Peace. Another Coiling Oracle. And the problem here is that We don't really want to kill his creatures. We also don't really want to exile it with Path to Exile. Alright, so he didn't have a land in hand. Probably leads him to utilize Evaporate if he does have it, or whatever it's called, Evaporate. As long as we're just taking 1 or 2 damage, I'm fine with that. Probably a solar, yeah. So we could have, of course, also just gone after the Soul Horror instead, or directly. Yeah, second white source to protect his creatures. Better protect them. We know that he indeed does have Force and Negation. Would like to draw that out. It's a little wonky here. Let's see if he forces, because that would actually give us a little bit of card advantage back. Yep. And the reason I'm doing all this on our turn is Evaporate. Do not want to be running into that. And apparently it doesn't have a second soul order, so he's gotten rid of a Wildfang Quaddle, which I'm also quite good with. So we're significantly behind the lands. But we might be able to get our Fact of Fiction through. Witness, sure. And that's why I wanted to have it exiled, the Soul Order, because otherwise they're just looping stuff. He's getting Force and negation back because he believes we're playing. Oh, come on. Planeswalkers, indeed. And that's the only, well, we have a Chandra, which could be coming in handy in this game. Other than that, as I said, Anger of the Gods, pretty good. I think we also want to go with Rest in Peace, because I believe that we're actually better on the battlefield than not on the battlefields. So he's probably gonna force. All lightning bolt. Which I'm kind of alright with. Or I die. Could also prohibit it, but I think it's alright. Gets a little bit of cards. No covered planes, sure. Yeah, that is alright. Be my guest. Always willing to get power. So at least we got a little bit of our card disadvantage back here. If he does have another force negation, but the way he played it, just not very likely. The only problem we really have is if he goes with another, let me see, ephemerate onto witness to get back force and then force us. That would be horrendous. Which he apparently has, or another force in hand. Okay. Decent piles. So Celestial Colonnade actually blocks pretty well. Let's see. I think I want to choose pile 1, just because of the lightning helix. Still get force, etc., etc. So that's pretty decent. So from the way he plays, we conclude that he does neither have ephemerate nor does he have another force. And that could, of course, change at any moment. And I gotta say, no, he could, of course, also have another path, which would make sense, I guess. But what's really bad for us here? Alright. I think we're not gonna block with the colonnade. And instead try to path the witness here. Because I really want to get rid of that one. And then we still have snap Fact of Fiction up. They also do feature a combo finish in warp, time warp, and eternal witness plus ephemerate. Because ephemerate basically says that they always get 2. Alright, land, and so I guess what he just drew was a land. And since we still have force of negation back up here, I'm willing to risk it. Venza. Alright. It's unfortunate, but fine, I guess. Get rid of that person. Just attack for 2. Don't mind if they attack us with the Coiling Oracle. Alright. So we've both depleted each of our resources, but we are still 3 cards up. And now we're just gonna race with Force of Negation backup, with Prohibit backup. With Lightning Helix. And I do not believe that they do have life gain. Alright. Not even attacking anymore. By the way, this matchup for Grix is also horrendous, because your opponent's basically outvaluing you all of the time because you just can't get rid of his graveyard, except for ley lines, full sport, or whatever. So I think we might have lethal here. I mean, our opponent has drawn many lands, but so do we. And therefore, I still did have a Force of Negation in hand. Alright, so Vendilion Clique, I think, can go. I don't want to get rid of the Force of Negations just because we need to exile Ephemerate, etc., so that it can loop it. Anger, pretty good. We're trying to win with Chandra here, or with our Colonnades. Maybe Force actually isn't as good. Do we want to go with Rest in Peace? Do we win on the battlefield? Does it even matter? I mean, Rest in Peace shuts off Logic Node for the most part, but yeah, I think we're gonna go with Rest in Peace here. And the reason is not that we actually need to exile their graveyard, but instead that one of these as well. Instead that we would like him to think that we need to exile his graveyard so that he goes with a Force again, and we have potentially Anger of the Gods at our disposal. Alright. So we already have 5 lands. Chandra is in touching distance. Chandra, of course, also in this matchup, just very good because it's uncounterable against all the force negations, and I don't think, like, if we can keep the board clean. Well, our opponent's not playing red, so I don't expect him to play Blood Moon here. Yeah. Already massively behind here. Prohibit isn't bad, per se. Basically means that we have a little more time to set our Anger of the Gods up. As long as he doesn't have access to white. Never mind. Alright, so this could be anything from a Wild Fang Wall to just Venser. Alright, there's Ephemerate. No, another White Fang. Cool. Alright. I mean, either we can anger all of them, or we just can't. Which will probably result in a tragedy. Wall of Blossoms. Well, that's a fine private target because on the one hand we interact with him, so we don't make it too obvious that we indeed do have Anger of the Gods in hand. On the other hand, though, it's just something that distracts him from just going on with the stuff. Alright, so now what we're going to do here is hopefully Cryptic something just for the sake of being countered. He wants to do something. 3 damage at a time is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. We can do it in like one more turn after this one. Okay, so I think we're gonna go return the Hollowed Fountain. He might counter or might not counter. I don't really mind. We draw a card, then we play Celestial Colonnade, Anger of the Gods, and if that doesn't work, like I'm doing this because I want to draw a 6th land, so that even if Anger of the Gods gets countered, that we indeed are able to sweep the board with Chandra. Alright. So now we hope that he doesn't have a second one. because that would be horrible for us. But, I mean, it's possible, but it's unlikely. Never mind. He's looking for it. He is looking for it. On the plus side, though, this means that I don't even know what he just path to exile. Alright. Actually, that ephemerate doesn't get a second trigger here. Therefore, only being a 1-for-1, which I'm fine with. So he might have a Jace or something like that in hand, and is thinking about. Actually, Venza can counter our Chandra, which is quite interesting. Force. Alright, so Chandra is gonna take down for 1 to kill Eternal Witness. Alright, Wall of Blossoms, sure. We could, of course, also just sweep the board. But that costs -3. And I don't really see the upside to that. Well, let's see. Yeah, we want to have a white source. Can be countered. So I believe, so one of the cards in hand is Path to Exile, depending on what the other card is. I believe he doesn't have any way of getting rid of a Resolve Chandra here. -X, yeah, can I not choose X? Alright. Okay, go on. Arrivederci. Yeah, actually Ephemerate here stayed in exile because it didn't have a target, so he couldn't cast it, I guess. Maybe he's also just declined to cast it, which would be somewhat awkward. Of course, if he did have another Ephemerate here in hand, that would have killed our plan. But we can't play around everything. Well, thank you all. Running into a Chandra sweeper here. Attacking us. Might mean that he does plan on Venza. And then from now on, we are just gonna go. Alright. Take her up. Because this should be good enough for board state too. So we could of course go with end of turn Sphinx's Revelation. This a time warp. We're gonna go after both Qual and Scavenging Ooze for him to hopefully not be able to see? It's giving us a better okay. Choose Poe 2. We need our Chandra to survive here. And I hope at least that he did do this in order to kill Chandra. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If he does have an Eternal Witness in hand, he just can't keep going. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Now we also do have a Force of Negation, which is pretty good. A good clock, nothing else that we necessarily need to do. Alright, and now we're closing the game here. We're not attacking because of the Path of Exile that he still has in hand. Always yield, please. And we already got lethal. Jeez. So this was a pretty good matchup to showcase a couple of cards. Sad that we had to start the league off with come on. Alright, we're gonna keep pitch cryptic. Against prowess here. So now I'm gonna go after the Soulscar Mage, although I don't like it, but Mono Red Prowess packs so much damage that we can't just let them stack triggers. Okay. Definitely need to find a Lightning Helix sooner than later. Alright, he's trying to go off here. And of course it's not a combo deck, but thankfully we do have 2 Celestial Purges in the sideboard and not just one. He will need to play around couple of things. Okay, bullying us probably means that there's not a phoenix coming. I'll light up the stage and mountain. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, Mountain Fairy Islet, not too big of an issue. So we need the Lightning Helix, we need to survive this turn, and then we need to draw lands to get to Sphinx Revelation. And once we accomplish that, I think we can win, but we're pretty far behind here. There's a Phoenix? No. The fuck is that? Oh, Bellum Reveler? No. Finally a promise. Sure. Monastery Swiftbeard. And Mountain, I believe. So Vendilion Clique, as our Nimbles are really bad in this matchup, and of course they always keep the Lavador in the graveyard just to okay, Soulscar Mage. Think the problem here is, yeah. So I think we are gonna main phase our Lightning Helix on the Soulscar Mage. Prohibited. No, that makes things differently here. Now we can counter and just path the Soulscar Mage, which is slightly better. Again, a very good spot for Prohibit. In this case, of course. Actually, I think I want to Lightning Helix him right now. To not be caught off guard by 2 bolts. That was Spike Mountain. All right. Yeah. We might get to a point where can Lightning Helix into Fetch into Sphinx's Revelation. Now, if we go Vendilion Clique here, doesn't really matter because he can still looting. Phoenix, sure. Alright, Needle Lightning Helix. On the upside, we know now that he's also playing Phoenixes, and therefore we can bring in our Rest in Peace, or we just bring in Anger of the Gods, because I want to get out the Evangelion Click and probably bring in Celestial Purge and Timelies. So potentially we don't even go after his graveyard, although he does have Finally of Promise, Phoenix, Faithful Soothing, and Lava Dart. Yeah, probably worth going after it. Hello. Alright, I cut the video short. Well, never mind. There's the Snapcaster that we definitely need. But any... Any Lava Dart does do it. Alright. Chandra, well, actually, might be alright. I think I want to have Anger and Timelies. I'm not gonna go with those. Flusterstorm might actually be a case. Celestial Purge. What else? Maybe it's better on the draw. If we force a negation of Blood Moon, that should be alright. We have 4 outs there. We're on the play here. We will let play first, and this is a keep. Just need to find a white source for it to be a pretty good hand. No creature turn 1, interesting. Might mean that turn 2, either he has a very stacked hand. Actually, did I bring in? No, I didn't. We're gonna do that on the draw. For gold show. Swift Spear and light up the stage. Okay. So we're gonna be very, very careful with our Celestial Purge because we needed to add a blood moon if it comes to it. Demons can come in tapped. So he wants to damage us. If we prevent it, then he might not be able to go with light up the stage here. And Celestial Purging, like, I won't be Lightning Helixing the thing because one Lava Dart is already enough to fuck us over. Purging might be alright because we have a Snapcaster in hand. And I don't want to yet give him a Land Source for free. Shrine, sure. Wouldn't have been able to stop that anyway. So, but we need a Cryptic Command to bounce that one. So we could go Path to Exile, Opt. Have a clock on the battlefield, although it's not super great. So we could get got by Blood Moon. But it's possible that he doesn't have one or didn't bore one in. Sure. I think timely reinforcements could come in handy. Because he will at some point get rid of our Snapcaster Mage. And now we really just need to find a Cryptic Command. Or another no, Snapcaster Mage doesn't really do it. Really need a Cryptic Command. Yep. Actually good with him bringing in creatures here. Hopefully also killing ours. Fact of fiction. We could easily die next turn. Like, keeping the Snapcaster Mage back isn't really worth it because he's playing Lava Dart, Fork Bolt, etc. And therefore, Soul Scar Mage, right? So now might be worth it. The only thing that can save his Soul Scar Mage here would be a Lava Dart. The shrine looms over us and is somewhat annoying. Um, let's pass for one turn. Hope that he doesn't have one or more, like one or two spells. He also will need to somehow tap the thing for us to be able to get to bounce it. So a lot of variables here. Otherwise, we somehow need to finish the game before Shrine of Burning Rage kills us, which is somewhat. Actually, I think I'm gonna go Fact or Fiction right now. We can take the one with lands all of the time. Although, well, Celestial Purge still gives us outs to Blood Moon. I think we're gonna choose pile 1 here. Get an additional land, the Lightning Bolt. Well, it's somewhat relevant, I guess. But we can get both Lightning Bolt and Force Negation back. And we'll get rid of Soul Skull Mage, so yeah, we're gonna choose that one. Play that one tapped. Pass the turn. If he does have another like Bolt or Labrador, then we die. Alright, there we go. Do have a cryptic command. Man. Alright, faithless looting. Sure. That's quite a disadvantage for the most part, so I'm good with that. I think I'm actually going to go with the Celestial Purge here. Reason being that I want to keep the Lightning Helix up to put him into a situation where he has to fire off the Shrine of Burning Rage a little bit too early. And then we can possibly kill him in response, hopefully. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He's going with Faithless Looting. So what I think we need to do here is to actually bounce our Snapcaster Mage. That will put him under pressure to shrine us. Because this looks pretty desperate, I hope. Yeah. So what's the worst case scenario here? I think he can't deal 7 damage in turn. Sphinx Revelation getting us back into the game. And we still have Snapcaster, Celestial Purge for a potential Blood Moon. But the Shrine is really a problem, and one that we probably need to address. Hopefully that's looting and not promise. it is, promise. And we're down to 1. All right. So let's see. Can we kill him? We attack with colonnade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then bolt, snap bolt. Should be dead, right? Let's see. 1, 4, 8, 10. We need 5, and then bolt, snap bolt. Yeah. Well, that was a rough game. Alright, so anger for the most part just wasn't really good here. Oh, Abrade is actually great. Better than Stony Silence. Way better than Stony Silence, yeah. And we could get Rest in Peace in. Still playing some shenanigans. But just don't trust the Rest in Peace. Alright, so now we do have counter spells, we do have an Abrade to get rid of that, which I'm fine with. Because it also doubles down in other categories. Yep, that's a keep. Our opponent's also beginning with 7 cards in hand. Remember that we will have to fetch for basic planes again. I'll probably light up the stage. Lavador and then we'll light up the stage. Which is pretty much lava spike. Okay. So now if we can, to some degree, maintain Shrine of the Burning Rage and Arclight Phoenix. Well, those are actually a couple of cards that he doesn't necessarily want to be exiled. So we can fetch for a Hallowed Fountain here. The Lavador is gone. Now we can only get either the Shrine or the Phoenix. Wouldn't know how he gets the Phoenix out though. And the Shrine, of course, is annoying, but we do have the Abrade, and he doesn't yet have the mana to maintain or keep it up. So I'm hoping gonna be faster than the Shrine itself. And going with the Shrine here also means that he doesn't have any other play. Could have, of course, also just gone with Path to Exile and prohibit the Shrine. But then, if he doesn't go with the Shrine, but goes with damage, and we're at 9, we might easily also just die. Although with the counterspell and the path, that's pretty difficult. Our opponent is insanely slow. What he's doing here. Alright, we are back at least one step further. Might also be possible that our opponent's just testing if we're still in the game. Alright. Easy does it. So, fighting our way back here after our 2 horrendous games against Tron. But yeah, I bought into that. But on the other hand, on the plus side, exactly those matchups where I thought we'd gain a couple of percentages, we actually did. Sherry X-Man, would you like to play first? Yes. Alright, keep it. Hopefully something where we can actually utilize our Chandra to her best. But Mulligan to 4 might be Hogak. Might just be Hogak. Or again Tron. There's no covered planes. Okay, no clue. No clue what's going on. No clue. Let's put that to the bottom. And before we know what's going on, we're just trying to counter. Okay, on 4 cards, I'm definitely going to counter this, otherwise, probably not. But so we would have had 4 lightning helixes here. The kitchen things is quite irrelevant. Still no clue what our opponent is up to though. I mean, he can hit us for days with that. Well, sure. So might just be mono white taxes here. But we shall know now. Angel. Mono white angel tribal. So for the most part, I want to have a land and the Snapcaster. I mean, Cryptic Command is also alright, I guess. Yeah, I think I'm shocking here. I probably can't go after the kitchen things because he indeed does have a Restoration Angel up. Rest in peace. Oh my goodness. And now it's the time. Of course, in that very spot, it would have been better for us. To do it differently, but yeah, another time, maybe. All right. So, mono white taxes, mono white angels. I don't know. Okay, just conceded. All right. We got two good games, and the others were quite well fast. But yeah, so overall, I'm pretty happy with the deck. I think we can beat almost anything but Tron, and even there we can get lucky sometimes. But it's probably like 20 or 30% for us. Other than that, great list, fun to play, and pretty well positioned in the meta. So I hope you enjoyed the content. Leave a comment. Let's talk about it. And of course, I'll be following it up with Grixis as soon as I can. Have a good day and week, guys.